DBJ, thank you very much for being here. The end of this week of Halloween week. Today is Future Friday, and I am still a little bit of a Halloween tradition. Doesn't look like it, but I'm wearing my Iron Spider sweatshirt. Doesn't quite come along because I'm down in a little thumbnail region, but that's all right. Um, it's just a little play. Be having a little bit of fun. All right, so. Today is Future Friday, and what is Future Friday? Well, we get to talk about tabletop RPGs from a modern aspect, maybe as modern as, say, Victorian or Renaissance period, um, um, flintlock pistols, on out to our modern day with cell phones and digital world out into the far future, cyberpunk, post-apocalyptic, intergalactic, and all that sort of jazz. And we take our theme, we've been talking about Halloween all week, it's Halloween week, and we take that theme, spread it out all week. So, and a lot of times our themes initially don't line up with what we are going to talk about on each day, whether it's Monster Monday or World Building Wednesday or Future Friday. So what does um Blur, you're so silly. Um for, for those who don't know, I am broadcasting live on YouTube, Twitch, and the audio is pushed out to Fantasy Grounds College Discord. So if you are a fan of Discord or you just want to listen in, you don't want to have to look at my ugly mug, go over to the Fantasy Grounds College Discord, join them, and slide on down to the bottom, past all the classes and the collegiates hanging out, down into the boiler room so you can hang out there, and you can post pictures and longer comments that really don't fit into or are allowed to fit into YouTube's live chat room. All right, so, and please participate because any and everything goes, although we prefer to stay on target, except when we get a little squirrely. The Halloween and science fiction in many ways don't seem to go together, okay? Not initially. Oftentimes, especially with our holidays, we did a whole holiday week talking about festivals and celebrations and special events, but Halloween in particular oftentimes doesn't seem like a modern concept. A lot of science fiction does not really include lots of holidays or strange. Ooh, my light is off. There we go. Strange goings on. Now I say that it often doesn't because there are a lot of one-offs when it comes to science fiction. Meaning that meaning that meaning that yeah, thank you, Omen. Yeah. Yeah, what about Cthulhu? He's kind of sci-fi in a sense. Cthulhu is very sci-fi. And what I mean is science fiction tends to embrace the known, or at least the unknown is knowable. And very few things are left completely unknowable, unpredictable, or untranslatable. Cthulhu is one of those in the sense of there's this thing either deep in the ocean or out there, this outer being or entity or something that may invade our system. Well, there's also the idea of 40K. Yeah, right. Zevron's like, oh, we prefer to stay on target? Since when? Did Jack finally get prescribed Ritalin? No, not handing that out today. You're gonna have to hit me up for a couple of tabs of that. Yeah, Omen talks about the hopelessness of being trapped in space, and 40K. 40K has a lot of like unexplainable events, but I would say that while the holiday Halloween may not translate exactly to science fiction, um, it's a great idea to have regions of space, or at least time periods in space, or alien races or locations that have unexplained phenomena that happen and may run along the lines of what we consider to be traditional Halloween. For example, Uh, yeah. Pelora brings up Pandorum, things that are on the world or in the world that outsiders don't understand. Event right up there with Event Horizon. Yep, Event Horizon. I would even bring up the movie Sphere, where the scientists find a sphere down in the bottom of the ocean. Now, internally, there is a logic to what's going on. The difference is that the internal logic does not translate to scientific logic. You know what I mean? So if, for example, you have a world where the the plants and animals are affected by your subconscious, and your subconscious mind begins to change their appearance or their interactions, or when you get close to the wormhole or black hole, the spirits of the dead or the echoes of the dead from your own subconscious become real. that may not that may not have a scientific reasoning, but internally, there is a logic to it. When you get close to the wormhole, spirits will exist and start swarming into your ship from echoes of your own guilt and subconscious. And so, um, using, while it may not be specifically a holiday such as Halloween, um, those events, I think it's very easy to introduce those events into a science fiction world. And you might even want to foreshadow a lot of that, whether there are um, enclaves that are like very very separated from the rest of society. There's an alien race that worships, fears, looks at these strange goings on, whether it's like a Bermuda Triangle kind of idea. Don't go out into the unknown regions because the unknown regions are unpredictable, or something of that nature. And then you can foreshadow it so that when the rules break, because a lot of arcane and untested and unrestricted energies that people just don't know, since they break the rules of science, that might break the expectations that the PCs are expecting. And so, having people, in world or out, specifically say, hey, guess what? We don't know what's going on in this particular situation, and no one's been able to figure it out. You're already setting up the fact that, hey, PCs, it's just an idea to engage in this thing, figure out what's going on, and then get the hell out of there. Deadman says there are several examples of Cthulhu-esque beings in a sci-fi setting, like Cthulhu Tech, yep, Warhammer 40k, all of Warhammer 40k. Eclipse Phase has lots of internal and external shadows of Cthulhu. Yes, Shadowrun has a lot of beasties and nasties that are floating around. I love the idea of also internal and external evils or unexplained things, much like our modern day use of nuclear energy or atomic energy, where we we- on we know for the most part what it does, but we don't exactly know long-term effects, or we don't know exactly um, certain how certain things operate. It could be that there are worlds or locations or special technologies like hyperspace or something. I'm thinking of hyperspace, I guess maybe not less nuclear energy, but I'm thinking of like um, starships powered by an energy that allows them to pierce, uh, go through wormholes or pierce time and space, and traveling into this extra dimensional space. While useful to get from one place to another very quickly, internally there might be powerful spirits or entities or something that live in this extra dimensional space that very advanced pilots or crews that are asleep or something, or in stasis or something, would not see. But if you happen to be awake, you might be affected by it. Pelora brings up the Night Sisters from Star Wars. They're a good mix of Halloween and sci-fi, like zombies and witches. Yes, you can also. How many times have we seen science fiction, science fiction designed ancient arcane creatures? I'm thinking more like vampires, right? Um, uh, I forget what. series it was, but they were called hemophages. People that had a blood disease, and the blood disease was like a nano plague or something like that. And in order for the people to live, they had to basically drain the blood of people who did not have the disease, and they were also vulnerable to ultraviolet light and that kind of thing. So, yeah, Zevron says, weirdly, my mind went straight to Yellow Lanterns for sci-fi fear. The Green Lantern Corps. You know what? That's a good one. The Green Lantern Corps is kind of a powers that are unexplained. A little ridiculous to harness the power of hope versus harnessing the power of fear, right? Like, I mean, scientifically, there is nothing like that. Yeah, Deadman says the hemophage was from ultraviolet. That's right, the hemophages, and well, it's a hell of a bunch of other things in there, like the pocket-sized extra-dimensional spaces you can carry on your wrist and hip. No, the extra-dimensional spaces on your wrist, the altered gravity units on the hip, and the what was it, like an 18-wheeler driving down the street, but inside of it was a giant lab with multiple rooms and whatnot. It was bigger on the inside than the outside. Yeah. Zev says a group of users with advanced technology that is empowered by fear, spreading it makes it more powerful. Cthulhu Punk, the cyberpunk Call of Cthulhu crossover is awesome. I don't have Cthulhu Punk. That's up my alley. But yeah, I mean, now if we wanted to relate this to a specific time period, there we go, the Wikipedia for the Ultraviolet film. Thank you very much, Deadman. For those who want a particular time period, it's possible to incorporate this when it comes to astrological events, like, say, solar flares, or the passing of a comet, or the alignment of planetary systems, or radiation waves of some sort, radiation, neutrinos, pick something, even some kind of energy field or something that's undecipherable, or something that's flowing through a particular part of a solar system or a galaxy or what have you, the exploding of a star, the unweaving of a wormhole, whatever the case may be. Those things may be may be endemic to your world, and they might happen periodically or randomly, or might be predictable in an intergalactic calendar setting, forcing maybe the PCs as travelers to find shelter, as everyone knows that every 50,000 years this energy wave flows through the system, or the comet passes through and disperses some, I don't know, it's a rogue planet that sheds behind it these large waves of irradiating waves of radiation or something. And so this strange event may happen, and of course the PCs are put in a position where they can't take shelter, or they're taking shelter with some kind of adversaries, or they're on a mission that can only be done when security systems are down or powered down or whatever, because of this particular situation. And again, this may be the future's version of Halloween. Like, hey, we know these things are going to happen. All right, everybody, take shelter. Shut all the businesses down. Everyone get behind your 20-foot thick plasticrete havens or whatever, and buckle down for the next 72 hours or whatnot. Killer clowns from outer space. Yeah. Although, you're just like, wait a minute, does that mean clowns were imported? Cthulhu says, Zev says, puts on the nerd glasses. Well, listen, actually, Green Lanterns are hope, Yellow Lanterns are fear, Blue Lanterns are hope. No, I thought blue. Oh yes, Blue Lanterns are hope, Green Lanterns are willpower. That's right. Yeah. It's like, oh God, that terrible Ultraviolet movie. I remember now. Why can you never remind me of good movies? Sorry. I'm a yeah, the movie It. Um, I I guess I'm such a have an analytical mind that there are plenty of movies out there that had terrible execution but excellent world building potential, and that happens to be one of them. Just like the movie Jumper and Push, and I don't know, a host of others that you're just going like, oh man. Yet Bright. Oh wow, the movie Bright. Yes, absolutely. Also, when it comes to movies like It and the movie Bright that was on Netflix, and Ultraviolet and such, it, and I know I'm bringing up White Wolf again, but it's a great way to kind of, and Witcher as well. Happen to see the trailer. Thank you, Deadman, for posting that in our private Discord server. Um, you could mix the idea of the yeah, mix the idea of the players having some kind of connection to this ancient power. Um, I agree with you, Omen. Bright felt a lot like Shadowrun. Now, the people who are Shadowrun fans, a lot of them were like, Bright is not Shadowrun. It's not in the future. I'm just like, relax. It's close enough. You know what I mean? Yes, I know there's not cyberware and there aren't dragons that are CEOs, but I think it was, as a first step for a live action version of that, I think it was a great step. But one of the things could be that the powers of the ancient world might still exist in some way, shape, or form into a far future setting. So, for example, people joke about Star Wars having space wizards. It's possible to make a setting where there are people who are the ancestors of these ancient powers, witches and warlocks, and summoning of demons and ghosts and things, and having those things still exist in the far future, maybe because it was again, maybe an astrological event has to happen to bring these powers back, much like Shadowrun, or they've been hidden away from the world, or science has explained it away as just, oh, that's what we used to think, but it's not real. But in game, these things are actually real. Yeah, Tesla's like Sturgeon's law: 90% of everything is crap, which is tends to be pretty true. Yeah, I know. Pelor's like, yeah, wipe the mustard and mustard and Mountain Dew off your chins, Shadowrun fans, and calm down. I know. I just thought that was so ridiculous. Like, wait a minute. Listen, Bright is as close as you're going to get until someone actually, someone like us, has the money and the privilege to harness a lot of talent and um, write a script with that kind of thing. So yeah, it's Bright was close enough. And some of the world building things in it I really loved as well, which is one of the things that are, I find that many of us have a hard time swallowing unless the world building is done well, and that is mixing magic with modern society. And I know Dresden Files happens to be the brand new newness. Shadowrun's been around for a while. There is Call of Cthulhu, everything from like Victorian setting into like the 1920s ish, all the way to modern day of investigators investigating magic. But when magic is brought more into the spotlight, tusk faced, like, right, Pelora bringing up tusky faced people walking around in modern society, Bright was a very good way of incorporating the idea that magic and science exist in the same world. And I get that there are a lot of us well actuallys who suffer from well actualism, and they're like, well, listen, well, actually, if magic existed, cell phones wouldn't exist, and all this kind of stuff. And part of me kind of like guffaws at that. It's just like, wait a minute, how do you know magic doesn't exist? So you don't have anything to compare it to, right? So uh, establishing the setting first and then working backwards as to why a thing is starting on one side of the equation, I think, is far better than starting on the other side, because you can make the case it's very easy to destroy a setting by trying to use common sense. Instead, the whole idea is to have fun. So start out with the fun parts that you want to include in the world and then go backwards out of that. Like, okay, so I want dragons and I want cyberware and I want psionics and I want alien races and I want vampires. Okay, so that's what I want. Now, how do we get to that point? Oh, I didn't know you had a soul there, Pelor. That good for you. Pelor says, well, actually, magic does exist in the smiles of all the children and the sunsets in the cool autumn rain. Oh, that's so nice of you. I mean, I know it's short-lived, but whatever. Yeah, Omen's like, yeah, you need cash for something like a lot of cash, and convincing some of these studios to actually do it as well. But who knows? There are lots of professionals in Hollywood as it is today that are openly that openly play lots of role-playing games in their basements and are proud of it. So maybe one of these days there will be. Zeb says the funny thing about Cthulhu Punk is Cthulhu monsters are supposed to be untouchable because of the amount of insanity and horror they cause people to see, yet cyberized people can literally code fear out. You have things like the Cyber Psycho Squad, who no longer see things outside of binary and pure logic. So you have this amazing potential of a group that have a chance to fight them straight up. I'm always torn. Yeah, he's so silly. His Zev says, that's not a soul, DBJ. She consumed those children's souls to feed her phylactery. Yeah, right? It's like, the smiles of children and the sunsets, all kept in my dungeon. I agree with you. Yeah. That's why Plura hangs out with the rest of us, because there's no safe place for her to be, right? Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, the Lich Corn. Ooh, an undead unicorn. I'm liking that. Ah, wow. Pony Lich? Unilich? I think that might be a thing that we might be able to make, maybe. Uh, wow. Yeah, Bit Omen says, oh yeah, isn't Vin Diesel a D&D player? There's a ton of D&D players. Up, um, Colbert. Colbert Report. Why did my mind just blank on him? Um, anyway, there are tons and tons of people that play role playing games. Sorry, I'm reading a bunch of the different chats. Um, yeah, Omen says, well, they have undead dragons as Draco Lich. Why not an undead? Why not unicorns or any other creatures for that matter? Uh, My Lichy Pony. Oh, you guys are silly. but are actually going down a pretty good pathway, as a matter of fact. Now, um, the it's possible it's possible that maybe some of the what we would consider ancient and lost um, technologies might be uncovered in a modern setting, much like the formula for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or talking about liches and phylacteries. Maybe that's a thing that has not been uncovered yet, which would fit very well in a tomb raiding Indiana Jones style, um, mummy styled game in which scientists, modern day scientists, end up uncovering the idea that these ancient peoples knew something that we didn't. Like, for example, to this day, scientists do not know what the formula was for Greek fire. So there may be things that have been existent and been lost to time, and so these things are bringing these people back, much like the idea of astrology becoming a real science. And that would be pretty interesting, that real science is I'm not, I guess I'm casting disparagement on people who believe in astrology, but um, scientific development mixes with the ephemeral nature of astronomy and astrology together, so that different planets, like say Mars, is both a, the red planet, and also might represent Mars, the god of war, which would be kind of cool to do. Um, Omen says, yeah, there's Damascus steel that has yet to be replicated. Um, to get those swirls, I think it's in, if you purchase a modern day blade that claims it's Damascus steel, I think it's those swirls are artificially created. So, and to this day, in, if I'm not mistaken, and this isn't restricted to only, but in Japanese culture, the it is a the Japanese culture has designed the I'm sorry, has protected the art of creating the katana and Japanese weapons as part of their history and culture, passed down by, like an internship process, basically teaching other students to do it by hand, and that it is a protected part of their culture, and they want that culture and that system to be passed down from generation to generation so that they don't lose it. And that the idea that there's something ancient, and it really, while modern technology has tried to mimic it, there's something not just spiritual but instinctive that can only be done by people who embrace the ancient part of it. I think is a great idea to incorporate into a far future realm. As a matter of fact, the setting that like yourself, Omen, I didn't ignore your comment about the setting that you're writing. Yeah, one of the settings that I'm writing, because I'm trying to write and try to make it unique, a more of a transhumanist setting, and part of it is a culture on the moon that is trying to save the lost histories of Earth. And so there are people there who are trying to keep the fashion and the languages and things of that nature alive. And so, like, making katanas and Damascus steel and those kind of things. The idea of Zen archery and all that business is trying to be maintained in this, like an enclave on the moon and such, from people that have left Earth. Pelor says, I think Damascus steel has been done. I've watched videos of people making knives and so like that. And a lot of those people are like hyper specific in their ability to do it, much like blacksmithing. Alex, writer um, and the layout person for Critical Hit Publishing that I work with, he does blacksmithing as well. And sometimes you need to go to a person who's surrounded themselves or dove deep into that kind of thing. Deadman says Japanese steel is called tamahagane. I remember all I remember all the A's are A's. Oh, tamahagana hagane. Butchering the pronunciation. Severely butchering the pronunciation. But anyway, yeah, it's. I could imagine maybe an enclave of humanity, or maybe there's an alien race that, while they are very advanced, maybe they embrace more of the ancient parts of society, and I could imagine the clash of an alien race that embraces the ancient parts of society, comes to Earth and Earth's solar system, and is enamored with the way we do things in an ancient manner, and the alien race in our ancient mythology is real to them, and they bring it back. Or maybe there's a meeting of the alignment of the stars and the planets or something, brings this ancient culture and this alien culture together, because they know that what we think of now today as a myth becomes a reality, and they want to encounter it or keep it for themselves or promote it into the future. Or they look at us like we're crazy, like, yeah, of course you'd have ghosts and undead creatures and Cthulhu-like horrors or something. Or maybe there's an alien race that's running from the Cthulhu-esque horrors of the galactic core that's spreading out, and they're trying to warn humanity. And the only way to fight it, technology won't fight it, but the idea of defeating your fears is the only way to do it. You're so silly, Pullor. um, Deadman says, got it close. Damascus Steel puts in the Wikipedia article. Yeah, it's uh, also, it just depends on where time and place, right? Trying to mimic those times and places and such. Zev says, um, uh, you may be surprised. You'd be surprised how many actors are D&D players. I'm pretty sure. What's the gentleman's name that has a very large D&D group in his basement? Um, um, he was going to play Deathstroke the Terminator. Um, Manganiello, I believe. He has the clothing line Save or Die. Yeah, he plays with a lot of directors, writers, actors in his basement as well. Will Wheaton, yeah. Oh, Will Wheaton is a known entity that has brought it into the forefront. I would say paved the way for. He's one of the top people that paved the way as a person who was very large into the spotlight, that helped bring Dungeons and Dragons into the modern age as not being something you should be ashamed of doing. Zev says, granted, that level of creativity to act supports tabletop really well. A lot of them are voice actors and real actors who just want to flex their muscles and such. There's a lot of podcasts as well where they get together actors and comedians and voice actors and such. Yeah, Manganiello, I believe, is how it's pronounced, not Manganiello. But yeah, I don't know how to spell his name. But a lot of them are brought together by people who create entertainment and are using Dungeons and Dragons as the framework to create the entertainment as well. So yeah. Plurals, that's funny. Yeah, yeah. It helps support the hobby, I suppose. Just a shame it's D&D, even if it isn't. Well, it is the world's most popular role-playing game. I mean, it's strange that uh, one game is literally the locust of the entire hobby. Um, because if Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast shut it down, I'm not sure what other game would take its place as the game to go to when trying to describe what a role-playing game is. Um, it'd be very hard to do that. Zeb says Cthulhu, Cyberlich, tired of his rotten arm falling off, got Bucky Barnes' arm with built-in spellcasting focus. That'd be kind of sweet though. Undead cybernetic, although the Warhammer 40K kind of does those kind of things. Uh, Omen says Pathfinder or Shadowrun, maybe? Yeah, well, I don't know if Pathfinder would be. I mean, Pathfinder is essentially Dungeons and Dragons, so that's kind of skirting. That skirts the rule a little bit. So yeah, and I know you're a big P1 player, so I suppose if you were to say if Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder faded away, I suppose you could then come out and say, well, what about all the OSR clones or something? So, but you get my point. If now, of course, there aren't going to be D&D police knocking on people's doors, getting their games back, but whatever. Zeb's like, the three laws I know to be true: water is wet, the sky is blue, and DBJ mispronounces everything. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, Zev says, I mean, when you first heard about tabletop games, 90% sure the first game you heard about is D&D. Yep, even if it's not the first game you play, There are it's been around too long, and there are far too many examples of Dungeons and Dragons, even in pop culture, to not presume that it isn't the gravity, the locus of tabletop games, or every other game is either in parody to it, like, oh, this game is like Dungeons and Dragons, or it's a game that isn't like it. Like, if you're thinking Dungeons and Dragons, this game isn't it because it has this other thing in it. So that happens to be a real thing. Now, in terms of in also in terms of doing a mixing Halloween and science fiction as well. Again, we can talk about having scientific explanations for for cosmic or what we would consider arcane events. This movie has faded away out of the pop culture, but it was on Netflix called, oh, wow, my brain just faded. Okay, someone help me out here, dead man. My brain fades all the time. It was a movie about a crack group of scientists and military people going into a battle zone, and there were these spirits going around, and if the spirits touched you, you would be instantly dead. And yeah, yeah, not scientists smoking crack. They were a crack team of scientists. Um, anyway, the not Revenant. Wow, wow, my brain just farted on me. Boy, whew. Um, anyway, long story short, in this Netflix movie, Spectral. I was like, Wraith? No, not Ghost. It was called Spectral. Anyway, in this movie, which took place slightly in our future, is like near future, there was a war-torn region being inundated by these energy-like spirits that could pass through solid objects, and they would just flow right through your body, and they would just kill you right through your body, rip your soul out, and kill you. But their origins were absolutely positively created through a scientific background. I'm not going to give it away. You can always look up Spectral. Since Netflix purchased it or sponsored it or something, it should still be there. But Spectral is one example of creating monsters or something in this kind of world. Yep, Zevron brings up rifts and cyberpunk. You could have experiments, meaning, like, of course, there is all of the Jurassic Park movies and Jurassic World movies bring up, genetic technology, bringing back dinosaurs. The same could be done for an experiment going wrong with someone trying to create. There's going to be someone, when genetic engineering becomes perfected, someone's going to try to create unicorns and dragons and ogres and bring back the mammoth and saber-toothed tigers and all kinds of nasty. Someone is going to do it. Okay, so and yeah, Spectral is on Netflix, at least here in the States. Plur brings up Freddie K and Jason V. Jason 5? Uh, yeah, more Polaris the barrier. Yep. Jason Voorhees. Yep. Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees are our modern day interpretations of, like, the unstoppable lich-like killers or something. Yep, Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. And let's not forget the other white meat, Michael Myers as well. Zev says, like, I love vampire, rifts, and cyberpunk, but D&D is so easy to teach and modify that it's easy to pick up, ergo more popular. I might argue slightly with you on that one, but Zev also goes to say, oh God, speaking of rifts, vampires and rifts are terrifyingly nigh unkillable demigods and feed on blood on a spaceship. Yeah, aren't they, like, immune to damn near all physical attacks except for the things that they're vulnerable to, like holy water and sunlight and, like, fire or something like that. It's pretty crazy. Rifts is, I love Rifts, but it's a crazy game. Palladium games have always been crazy. Like, they're just like, yeah, a game balance. Yeah, we're not going to do that. Um, yeah, I think that the bones of Dungeons and Dragons are old enough and settle into our pop culture that is easier to explain rather than it being an easy game. I think there's a lot of other games that are easier to explain, but you know, pop culture wise, people understand what hit points are, even if they've never played the game. They understand what the rolling the dice and game masters and stuff are, without necessarily needing to explain a lot, just because of pop culture references. So, yeah. Tabletop RPG or pen and paper RPG are a lot more cumbersome than D&D. And yeah, it's contracting RPG to say. Yeah, uh, yeah, whatever. But guys, it's this guy's so silly. Um, tangent. Um, yeah, Zev's like talking about, yeah, they're immune to anything, immune to anything not MDC damage or ship blaster level or silver. Is it silver? Yeah, yeah, that's silver's not too common when it comes to people referring to their vampires being vulnerable to something, but that is a thing, right? Silver. I've even heard of like gold and certain kinds of wood are a thing for vampires and such, which brings up another part of mixing science with ancient fears for like Halloween that sunlight destroying vampires can be morphed into ultraviolet light for vampires, which kind of brings up the idea that, could vampires go into space as like astronauts, since they're not on a planetary surface protected from the ultraviolet rays of the sun? They might have to be in sealed, protected hovels or something. So, yeah. Ah, Rifts, they use silver bullets. They specify silver bullets. Yeah. Um, and also, what about the idea of werewolves turning into a werewolf because of the blood they have for a full moon? What happens if they visit the moon? Do they all instantly go insane and start ravaging everyone? um, uh, Eternally? I don't know. That'd be kind of strange. Um, hmm. An idea of wood. Pelor says, idea. Wood that can only grow on a certain planet is strong against vampires, but it is rare. Imagine an alien race inundated by vampires and they have to come to Earth to get the wood or the silver bullets or whatever the case might be. Or they have to asteroid mine the silver to collect it for the silver bullets they need to kill these things. That I, I think it might be a little bit difficult, but I like the idea, the challenge it would be to translate like evil spirits, the undead, zombies, vampires, werewolves, ghouls, ghosts, goblins, and all those kind of things, and translate that into a science fiction style setting, and trying to reskin or rename or refocus their current restrictions. So, for example, there's the restriction of a vampire must be invited into a home. Would that count for an entire habitat or only your specific living space in a domed habitat or a spinning O'Neill cylinder or something, right? Oh, specific silver isotopes, that's possible as well. Maybe ultraviolet light focused through a specific kind of atmospheric pressure, meaning like a vampire wouldn't just turn to ash when they're in space, but it's because of the atmosphere. So maybe a gas giant, you might be able to, or gaseous atmosphere like Venus might be able to do it. I don't know. That'd be kind of weird. And the whole full moon thing, is it the moon itself or is it a reflection of light from the moon? So if you're on the dark side of the moon, you wouldn't be affected as a werewolf. And like you said, is it a specific silver isotope? Meaning like um, silver isn't just solid; it can be a liquid. If it's like silver nitrate or something like that. Yeah, Omen's saying like like common silver wouldn't affect them. Uh, yeah. Yeah. Zev says the price for UV protected ships goes up among vampire populations. Yeah. um, I could see them dominating all of the underground havens on other worlds and planets and asteroids and such because they don't want to risk being exposed to the ultraviolet light from above. So they might have a lot of agents working for them, and traveling from place to place might be problematic because the ships would need to be protected, much like a vampire needing to sleep in a coffin or something. They would have to trust their agents to take them from place to place. Although maybe stasis would have to work because they would have to feed for months or even years to travel from place to place. Oma says, I mean, in Dresden Files, the silver had to be inherited. Also, there is the idea of things being blessed. Um, uh, Holy sites, sacred locations may become quite different as well. So a sacred or a religious institution like a cathedral might also exist in, say, an orbital hospital. And while the hospital might be inundated by evil spirits or vampires or what have you, maybe the chapel itself is a protected location on that spindle hospital or something. Um, Pillar-ist says, yeah, isotopes have different numbers of neutrons in them, but are the same element. Ah, so again, going deep into the science of the science fiction to explain the vulnerabilities of these other things. Um, Tesla says same element equals same number of protons. So there's also there's the idea of, say, um, irradiated things like ionization or half-life of radioactive materials. Um, so replacing one limitation like silver or a stake through the heart or ultraviolet light or something, maybe some of these extra spiritual creatures are affected by certain types of radiations, energy waves, isotopes, meaning like radio waves or gamma rays or X-rays or something. And each one might be affected by it separately. So, an X-ray laser might be able to blast away at like these spectral, I don't know, energy ghosts where there might be ionized demonic spirits or something that are affected by microwaves or something like that. Like, you know what I mean? I'm just pulling crap out of my ass, but you get my point, right? Like, and so you could, I think this is how I would write it if I had to write it. I would make a list of like my top 10 to 20 ancient, arcane, horrific creatures, and I'd make a list of them. Like, okay, I want vampires, I want ghouls, I want banshees, and just start making lists of them. I want doppelgangers, or whatever. And then I would make a list of some of the possible vulnerabilities we would have in our intergalactic society, whether it's like radioactive isotopes, whether it's gamma rays, whether there are neutrinos, there are, you know, protons, beta rays, or whatever the case might be, um, high energy X-ray, infrared and ultraviolet light, whatever it is, and make a list of a lot of those things. And then I would just make lines going to each of them and start picking out the limitations that would fit the best with them. Dead Man says there are dozens of silver isotopes, and maybe those dozens of silver isotopes relate to the dozens of a dozen or so creatures. One isotope affects werewolves, another isotope affects something else, and of course you could reshape vampires and werewolves as well, reskin them. So instead of a werewolf, they could be were other creatures. wolves, bats, scaled creatures, some other alien type creatures, meaning like they could be xenomorphs or predators or something like that. Were cows and were squirrels. um, hey, if they're 12 feet tall, maybe they are pretty scary. Ooh, squirt. Maybe it's like it's until it's pasteurized, you really can't taste it. It's probably pretty acidic. Um, Tesla says Martian werewolf. Phobos orbits closer to Mars with an orbital period of 7.66 hours. Deimos with an orbital period of 30.35 hours. So a Martian werewolf might be like, they might not be a wolf in the classic sense, but maybe each moon elicits a different change based on their orbital periods. And so maybe it's not hair, but like a thick hide. And they make fast climbers because of the vast hills and valleys and mountainous regions on Mars. They can breathe the carbon, is it dioxide or monoxide? The thin atmosphere of Mars. They could breathe that. Maybe they are super fast to cross the huge swaths of uh, essentially desert on Mars. That would be a thing. Maybe being able to hide in the sand and the dirt and the rubble as well, or blend into it, or their forearms and their back and the back of their legs, if they remain still and curl up in a ball, they look just like another rock or something, and they're able to maybe they're like boulets or land sharks or um, purple worms or the dune worms, right? They slither in and out of the soft soil, if there is any soft soil on Mars. I don't know if there is or not. Or oh, that's right, they have fines. It's dust powdered so thin that they're like micron size. So yeah, I could see that. Um, that'd be kind of sweet. Yeah. Were squirrels. Yeah, they get in your house and bite your nuts. Don't touch that were squirrel's nuts. Anyway, um, although if you have a planet like the moon of Endor, which is nothing but a forest with giant cities, tall trees, having flying, gliding were squirrel people might be a thing. You're not the boss of me. Give me back my nuts. Don't touch them. I'm putting them in my mouth. I don't care. One in one side. One in the other side. Dirty. All right, so there are some other things as well in terms of spiritual, horrific things like zombies and skeletons and such. Um, for example, maybe there's an accident, like people are playing with quantum physics or something of that nature, and they're quantum entangling beasties or people, or experimenting on people or something. So you could, instead of wizards and psionics and magic, maybe that comes from quantum entangling humanity with the greater powers outside in the world. So for example, a pulsar 200 light years away from us might be quantum entangled with a PC who has the power to harness the power of that pulsar. And then there might be a nebula filled with arcing, powerful electrical arcs and ball lightning, and someone else is quantum entangled with it, allowing them to essentially open up a wormhole of sorts to this electrified nebula, allowing them to harness those abilities, and that's where the PCs gain some of their abilities from, but they're also feared, and there are other powers out there that are bringing these things to fruition. So maybe when someone dies in a horrific way, instead of them coming back as a skeleton or a zombie, maybe they come back as like nanotech that has some kind of internal energy that is their neural pathways that bring the nanotech together, nanotech dust, and it acts as like a nanotech ghost of sorts or something. I'm just trying to pull crap out of my ass on this one as well. But again, reskinning those horrific things for your Halloween game in the far future might be a real thing. Now, also, you could play with some silly tropes, meaning there could be AI systems that just want to play games that are like, oh, Halloween is here, guys. I'm going to lock the ship down. And by the way, I've been designing some of those ancient horrible things that you've had in your ancient past of Halloween. I made them real. I'm going to let them loose on the ship. Let's have some fun. You know what I mean? You did what? Like, yeah, I've been growing werewolves and vampires and evil spirits down in the nutrient bays. I thought that's what you wanted. Like, no, and letting them loose on the ship or something like that. You know, the AI is like, oh, they're gonna love this. I can't wait for Christmas. I've got Keebler elves just awaiting. Beware of were squirrels. Dead Man says, read Eclipse Phase for Halloween-inspired materials. Eclipse Phase is a favorite amongst us. I know Dead Man loves it. I love the setting material itself. I think the game is worth the setting material itself. I haven't picked up the PDF of second edition yet. I really love physical books, but I might have to pick it up anyway. I think it's like $20 or something. That's not too bad. All right, Omen, have a great one. Gotta head off to work. I get it. Have a very good evening. As you guys know, for here in the States, it is the end of daylight saving time. Whatever the case might be, time falls back for us. For me here in Central Ohio, so the time will change. But you'll see that when the next week comes up. I'm not sure about next week's theme. I'm thinking something like Aftermath, or like the aftermath of player and NPC actions, specifically player actions. I'm also thinking of maybe archetypes, tropes, and stereotypes. That might be a thing as well. Consequences, yeah. And the ripples of those things, yeah. For every player character that fires a fireball, like, what the hell happens after that fireball goes off? Like, does it set things on fire? Is there a big black mark sit there in the world? When you cast your magic, do you leave a ripple upon the arcane waves and weave of the new world? Yep, the corpses don't disappear. You've killed 38 goblins, and there's a big pile of dead goblins there. I wonder if it's going to start to smell. You know, that, yeah. So, yeah, we'll go with that. We're going to do that. We're going to do consequences. Yep. Truth, dare, consequences. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. Yeah. Yeah, Dead Man was like, well, does it create an ice ball somewhere else? Who the hell knows? Did you, every time you cast a fireball, are you slowly bringing those fire elementals to this plane of existence? Yeah, is every pyromancer there creating a deeper cold up in the Northlands, and the people there are suffering from the deep cold as it just gets colder and colder from the heat being drawn from somewhere? We don't know. So I think that's a great idea. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining me. Your time is very valuable, and I like you spending that here on this channel. I hope you leave with a little bit of change. Have a great one. I will see thee Monday.